All right, Shabbat Shalom, Boker Tov, good morning, and Baruch haba, welcome. We welcome you to our Boker Shabbat service this morning, and we're studying the. Get out of that. That'll help. Okay, I lost everything now. There we go. The book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis, and chapter 1, and we're studying the creation of man. And I believe we're in verse 26. This is where we were last week. Vayomer Elohim naaseh Adam betzalmenu kidmutenu ve'yirdu vidgat hayam uv'of hashamayim uv'abkema uv'kol charetz uv'kol harames haromes al charetz. And God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness, and they shall rule over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the heaven, animals, and over all the earth, and over all the creeping things that creep upon the earth. Vayidra Elohim et ha'adam betzalmo, betzelem Elohim bara oto sakar ukeva bara otam. God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Vayvayek otam Elohim vayomer lachem Elohim. Piru orvu umilu et ha'aretz v'chiv shukha urdu bidgat hayam uv'of hashamayim uv'kol chaya haromeset al charetz. God said, behold, I have given you every seed-bearing herb which is upon the surface of the entire earth, and every tree that has seed-bearing fruit, it will be yours for food. Ukol chayat charetz, ukol of hashamayim, ukol romes al charetz, asher bo nefesh chaya et kol yerek esev la achla vayhichen. To all the beasts of the earth, to all the fowl of the heaven, to everything that moves upon the earth, in which there is a living spirit, every green herb to eat. And it was so. Vayar Elohim et kosa vehineto meod vayhi erev vayhi voker yom hashishi. God saw all that he made, and behold, it was very good. And it was evening, and it was morning, the sixth day. May the words of my mouth, the meditation of our heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. And we all say, Amen. And so, speaking of the creation of man, Vayomer Elohim nas Adam betzalmenu kidmutenu. And so here he says, it says, and Elohim said, Na'asa Adam, let us make Adam, human, the human, be in salmenu, our image, kid, also muteno, our likeness. Okay, now, so we have a situation here that the rabbis have problems with, have trouble with. And the situation is the plurality that's being used here. Who is the we? Who is the us and our? Who is the us and the our? Now, we also have another situation, and we spoke somewhat to this concerning Hashem when we were first speaking in the chapter 1, verse 1, Bereshit, Genesis, verse 1. Bereshit bara Elohim, when we are introduced to Elohim. In the Western world, we use the term God. Elohim is more appropriate than using the term God, because God may denote idols as well. Elohim very occasionally is used for idol worship, but usually not. Other terms are used. Elohim is often saved exclusively for this being who is the Ein Sof, who is the infinite one. And in fact, the idea of Elohim, the idea of El, and Elohim is not necessarily what our perception would be, because there's a more definitive term to describe, to define this word into English, and that is judge. In fact, you'll remember that we spoke to this when we were teaching in verses 1 and 2, that he looked and he saw, and even here we read what is the final verse. It says, Vayar Elohim, and saw et kol asher asa, all that he had made. Vehine, and behold, tov, it was good. What is he doing? He's judging. We told you that when the term, what is the difference between Elohim and Yud-Ke Vav-Ke? That the reason why these different terms are used, what would be translated as Lord, or we call Hashem, the reason, the name, the reason why we call him Hashem or Adonai, Lord, the reason why we call this is because this is the merciful side. Remember, we told you last week that man is created with both the male and the female within him, within this being. The original human, Adam, Ha-Adam, the human, is created with both the male and the female attributes. And we'll get more into this when we get into the creation of Chava, of Eve. Where does Eve come from? She comes from the side. He takes a rib out of Adam, out of the human. He takes one of his ribs and he creates. In other words, he takes her from inside of him. And so this is why it says that male and female, that he created him, male and female, he created them. And so the Chasal, the sages, deduce from all of this language that the female is actually within the male, that they are both together. I told you last week that in Kabbalah artwork, you will often see Adam and Chava painted or drawn front to back as androgynous beings, both male and female, and you have Adam on this side and Chava on that side to help us to understand that both are one. They are literally in the beginning, they are echad, they're one. That she's within him, and he pulls her out. God is, that is, pulls her out. And so we told you that the original Adam, what we call, by the way, and Rav Shaul alludes to this, speaks to this in the book of Romans about the first Adam and the second Adam. The first Adam, Adam Rishon. This is Adam Rishon, the original human. Now remember, I told you last week that Adam literally means human being. That it comes from the word Adam, Adama, from the earth, comes from Adam, meaning red, because of his blood. And so we have the Magen Adom in Israel, the red cross, except for it's not the red cross, it's the red shield, the Star of David. So they call it Adom Magen, the red shield, is the term that is used for the Red Cross organization there in Israel. So Adom meaning red. Remember that Esav, the brother of Yaakov, remember they're twins, and Esav is born first, and that when he's born, that he's covered with hair, that he's also red, that he has red hair and a reddish complexion, and so they nicknamed him Edom, red, right? So we had a man when I was growing up who was a welder there in town, and his name was Red. We called it. I don't even know what his name was. We called him Red because he had red hair, and so we called him Red. And so people who have red hair, pink complexion, that reddish complexion. Oftentimes they're called red, for their nickname. And so it was with Esav that he's called Edom, which means red, to be reddish in color. And so we find out that guess what? The Chazal, the sages tell us that in probability, David Hamelech, because he's a descendant on one side of his family, on his grandmother's side. Remember that Boaz marries Ruth, and Ruth is a descendant of Esav, and so that red bloodline is running through her. No, I don't know what color her hair was, what color her face was, but the genetics of the red runs through her. And so the sages tell us that it's very probable that the way the scriptures describe David Hamelech, that he probably was a red kid, kind of pudgy, freckle-faced, white, reddish kind of a looking person. And we know that Yeshua Mashiach is a direct descendant of David. So through David is coming this genetic red-looking face. We always having, we imagine him as probably being looking, most Israelis have dark hair and dark eyes and everything like that. It's very possible that Yeshua had red hair because those genetics were running through him, and that he becomes unrecognizable. He gets mixed up with Edom. Edom is known as Rome, that the Gentiles steal him. This is what the sages say concerning the Mashiach, is that he comes from, and the scripture even says that he comes out of Edom. And back in the days of the Second Temple, Edom, that the sages called Rome Edom, that Rome was Edom. Okay, so Rome were the descendants of Esau, and so the Romans captured him, and so of course we have the Roman Church, the Roman Catholic Church, and so from him the Gentiles captured the Messiah, and so the prophets speak of Yeshua, of Mashiach coming out of Edom when he returns, that he comes out of Edom to return to his people. They don't recognize him. Who is this, and who did this to you? And he will say, I was injured. I was injured in the house of my brothers. And so saying all of that to say that, remember that and what we're getting into this morning is that Salem, in his likeness, and so God has both attributes of, and this is where we ended up last week. God has both attributes of male and female. Is God male or is he female? The scripture calls him a male and uses the pronoun he and him to describe God. Is he male or is he female? And the truth is, yes. Okay, a lot of times in Judaism, in our Western world, in our Western thinking, it's either or. It's this way or it's that way. It's my way or the highway, right? My house, my rules. It's this way or it's no way. It's this way. And so, we want to make everything black and white. It's yes or no. Either it's alive, he's alive, or he's dead. He can't be both. But in Judaism, this is not the way. In Judaism, it may be yes, it may be no, but oftentimes it is both. And so a rabbi will say, is it this way or is it that way? And the answer is yes. Is it this way or is it that way? Yes. Remember Tevye in Fiddler on the Roof, when they're arguing around the well, right? And they're having this big discussion at the very beginning. They're having this big discussion. And one of them says, such and such and such and such. And Tevye says, oh, he's right, right? And then the other guy goes, and such and such and such and such, contradicting. And he goes, and he's right too. And the guy goes, what are you talking about? They both can't be right. That's what that whole scene of the movie is about, that oftentimes in Judaism, yes, they can both be right at the same time. Even though they look as though they appear as though they're in opposition to each other. They're both right. Okay? It can be this and that at the same time. Okay? So you have Hashem, who is both male and female. Well, which is he? Is he male or is he female? Yes. The answer is yes. But wait a minute, then the answer is also no. The answer is yes, that he's both, but also no, that he is neither. Because in fact, Ein Sof is neither male nor female. These are simply attributes, descriptors that are given, that he gives to himself in order for us to relate to him, to understand him. Because otherwise we could not relate. How do you and I don't know, some of you may have grown up without a father or without a mother, with only one parent. Some children grow up with no parents. How do you relate to a father whom you have never known, of whom you know nothing, or a mother of whom you know nothing? I was thinking the other day, because it was, I believe, about this time of the year that my daughter-in-law Charity lost her mother. And at that time, they only had Evie, Evangeline. Evie was, I guess, about 2 years old, 3 years old when her grandmother passed. 4 years old. 4 years old. Her and her grandmother were very close, very tight. But I was thinking, 4 years old, at such a young age, to lose your grandparent. Now, she still remembers her grandmother. But what memories is she really going to have at such a young age? And Kara and Nehemiah, neither one of them ever knew her. They were born after she had passed. So what relationship can they really have with her in such a situation? Can you check and make sure the videos are working? What relationship can she have? Can they have with her? Because they've never known her. Evie will only have slight memories. And I am the same way. Both of my grandfathers died before I ever existed. I have no relationship with them. I have no fond memories of them. I have pictures of them. I know what they look like. I don't know what their voice sounded like. I don't know what their three-dimensional appearance would be to me. I don't know these things. I have stories from my mother and my father and others who knew them, but I never knew them. And so what relationship can I have with them? And it's the same way with Ein Sof. What relationship can you and I have with the infinite one, we being finite, we being so limited in our understanding, in our comprehension of this great, magnificent being? How can we relate to him? And so what the infinite one did was he lowered himself. He dimmed the light, the brightness of his light somewhat, in effect, in essence. He brought himself down to a level where we could relate to him in some manner, on some level. And it is only in his stooping down, bending down to this level, so that we could relate to him. Only in this could we relate to him and then love him. The question is often asked, and particularly among Jewish people and among rabbis. They deny that God would become a man, a human being. Why would he do that? Why would he stoop to such level? My response to them would be primarily love. What do you mean love? God so loved the world that he stooped down to this level? You see, love. The reason why he would take on the form of a man is because in the form of a man, you and I can truly relate to him. He's a human being, and this is what the book of Hebrews says, that he was tested in every point, just as we are tested, but he was without sin. He did not fail. He did not fall. He did not fall. Where you and I fall short of the glory of God. He did not fall short of the glory of God. He maintained the glory of God. That is, he perfectly kept Torah. I heard someone say a while back that he broke the Shabbat because the Prushim, or the men came up to him and were questioning him because his disciples were walking through the field on Shabbat and they were plucking grains. And so that he broke Shabbat. No, he did not break Shabbat. He was sinless. If he broke Shabbat, he would not be sinless. And if he's not sinless, how can he save you and me? He cannot be a sinner. He could not. What is sin? The book of 1 John tells us that the sin is the breaking of Torah. So if he did not keep Shabbat perfectly, then he is a sinner, just as you and I are sinners, and therefore he cannot save you and me. He's in the same boat that we are in. He's not in the same boat. He's in another boat. He's in a perfect boat, this boat of sinlessness. And in this way, he's able to reach out and rescue us and pull us up by the hand, pull us out of the water, even as he rescued Kepha out of the water, pull him up onto his level and save his life. Why was it that Kepha was not able to walk on the water when Yeshua was able to walk on the water? Because Yeshua is the creator of the water and he is perfect, completely without sin. But the reason why he is in human form, even though he's without sin, the reason why he is in human form is so that we can relate to him. Because only in my ability to relate to him can I actually truly love him. I love in one essence. I love my grandfathers. Even though I don't know them. I have a love for them because they're my family. And so I have this love for them because that's the father, that's the father of my mother. And so I would love them as being my ancestors. I don't know how many of you have worked on your family tree. I'm the genealogist of the family. I do that, and I've been interested in this. When we were growing up, I would get up early in the morning, and oftentimes my mom, as I was eating breakfast, my mom would tell us stories about the family. And as we grew up, she would tell us stories and give us information. Oh, this is the way your father was raised. This is the way I was raised. This is what happened to us. And she would tell us events of their lives and such as that. But I wasn't there and I didn't see it. Now, do you know that every generation, every generation that you go back, your family is multiplied. What's the term? Exponentially. Meaning what? Well, you start off with two parents, right? But each of them also has two parents. And so you start off with two parents. Now you have how many grandparents? Exponential. Now how many great-grandparents? And how many great-great-grandparents? So that on my family tree right now, I have over 5,000 people. Because I've taken my family tree and many branches back years and years. grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, great-great-great-great. On one side of my family, one family line, I have all the way back to the 1400s. And there's a reason why my last name is King. There's a relationship. There's a relationship, one of the branches. Anytime you approach me, kiss my ring. Just kidding. So there are, how do you love all of these people? Can you even relate to your ancestors who lived 200 years ago? How do you relate to them? We don't even know what it was like. We live in this modern age. We don't understand what it's like to ride around on horses and in carts and carriages, or have to walk everywhere we go. We don't know what it's like to be carrying a sword with us everywhere we go, or wearing armor, or these kinds of things. We don't know. How do you relate? How do you relate to going out and not, having no HEB to go to pick up your groceries, or you have to grow your own food in your own garden? You have to go out and kill the cow, kill the chicken yourself, and pluck the feathers off, and all of those things. How do you relate to the people that did that all of their lives? What I'm saying is, how do you and I relate to God? He is so far above us, so far beyond us. Do you realize that every minute particle of creation was specifically, particularly designed by his great mind? All of these things, we don't even begin to understand how this universe works and operates. There's a fairly new thing in science and physics called string. What is it called? Quantum physics, the string theory, where everything is attached, where everything affects everything else. So that the earth is not out here alone. What the earth does affects the whole universe. Everything is connected. And how that is, and what is the filament? There's a thin layer of atoms that stretch throughout the entire universe, that connects everything. I remember when I taught basketball back, I taught Joshua's freshman basketball team, and I was their coach. And one of the teams, I don't remember which one it was, but one of those teams, they didn't know how they could not get playing together. They could not comprehend playing zone. They all wanted to play man, and they couldn't play zone. And I could not get them to understand the concept that you simply, you're protecting the basket, and you simply step out when the ball comes to you. Now you go out in a kind of like a man formation, but the others come over to help, so that you're not there protecting by yourself. And so finally one day I got very perturbed with the way they were playing, and they couldn't get their act together. So I went and I got jump ropes. And I took these jump ropes. I got a bunch of jump ropes, and I took them and I tied them around the waist of each player. And I tied one end to this player, and I tied the other end to that other player. And then I tied another jump rope to that player, and then so that all of the players had jump ropes around them. And so they were all tied in all of these different ways. So that what happened when this guy went out, right? What would happen to all the other guys? Because they're all strung together. When this guy would go out, what would happen? All the other guys would go with him. Not all the way where he was, because they had to keep the rope tight, but they would come out to where he was. So that he's not by himself out here protecting. He has this group around him. And so as the ball would move, they would do this. And they learned and they got it. And they became very good basketball players. By their senior year, they became, sorry, Mr. Gill, I'm not answering your call. They became, they were area champions by the time they became seniors. And I was very glad to have a part of this team and to be able to lay down foundations for them, which they use for the rest of their careers in high school athletics. But so we're all connected. That we all have this connection. We don't understand how it works. We don't understand how the universe works. If we can't understand how the creation works, how do we understand how the creator works? If we do not have the ability, the mental capacity to understand and comprehend all of this that just in our own physical world, you know, we don't even know what's in the middle of this earth. There are theories and people surmise, but we don't know for sure. Why do we not know for sure? Nobody's been there. So we have ideas, but you know, this thing about science and always depending on science, guess what? Oops. Science can be wrong. Because it's science doesn't mean it's necessarily accurate or correct. You know, there were several scientists who were saying that the hydroxychloroquine was very dangerous for you, very dangerous. If you took it, you're going to die. That's what a lot of people thought. Did you know yesterday that the very people who came out with that are now denying it and saying, nope, it's not true. Nope, oops, we made a big mistake. It's not true. Hydroxychloroquine was involved in some of the chemicals when I almost died. That was one of the chemicals that they were using to clear out the bad bacteria that was killing me. It's what kept me alive. What I'm saying is that, you know, 1,000 years ago, the scientists of that time believed that the earth was the center of the universe and that everything in the universe, including the solar system, that the sun revolved around the earth. Now we know what? Not only are we not the center of the solar system, we're out in the far reaches of the universe. We're not at the center of the universe. We're actually out in a far branch of the universe. And not only is the earth not the center of the solar system, the sun is the center of the solar system, and the sun is rotating around us. We are rotating around the sun. Oops. And even though we call it sunrise and sunsets, the sun does not truly rise, nor does it truly set. It is the rotation of the earth that causes it appear to rise and set. Tell them that 1,000 years ago. In fact, some scientists did try to tell them that 1,000 years ago, and they almost lost their heads over the whole thing. What I'm saying is, how, if we cannot understand creation and we cannot comprehend creation, how do we comprehend the Creator who ended up all of this? Thus, the purpose of the attributes of God is for him to give us a way that we might be able to relate to him. And the reason why he gives us attributes of father and mother is so that we can relate to him in such a way as we could love him. So that we could love him. That we could appreciate him. How many of you here enjoy being appreciated? In fact, it kind of ticks us off. We're not appreciated, right? when they take advantage of you. When people take advantage of you, we don't like that. And so when they don't appreciate me, I don't appreciate them. Right? We don't like not being appreciated. We like people showing gratitude for our work and our efforts. And we like people. You know, the reason why children do what they do. How many of your children drew pictures of mommy and daddy when they were little? What do you mean they still do? But how many of your, you know, they made little stick figures of mommy and daddy in the house with the little curlicue of smoke coming out the chimney, even though we didn't have a chimney, but every house has to have a chimney because, you know, how does, who come down the chimney? So we have the little curlicue. How does he come down the chimney when there's smoke coming out? I've never understood that. But the tree in the yard and the big giant sun with the big rays coming out. This is mommy. This is daddy. This is brother. This is sister. This is kitty cat. And then they bring it to mommy and daddy. Look, this is yours. This is yours. And they're all proud of it. And all they want to do is hear you say how beautiful their picture is and show gratitude and appreciation. Have you put it on the refrigerator for the rest of the time that they live in that home? Right? You have it magnetically attached to the refrigerator till they go to college, and finally you take it down, and then you get all because they're gone, and now their picture. I took their picture down. I got to put the picture back up there. We have a picture on our wall, Miss Wilma and I do, that Evie made for us a year ago. And it's hanging on just like one of the paintings because Evie made that picture. All a little child wants is your approval, your gratitude, your appreciation. I remember when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old, somewhere, probably 8 or 9 years old. Mother's Day was coming up. And we were poor. We grew up dirt poor. I mean, we had the high water pants and the torn shoes and the holes in the pants. And that's the way we grew up. That's the way we had to go to school. You know, we were the kids that, we were fast growers and we didn't get tall, but we grew fast and, outgrowing our shoes 3 times in one school year. And you have to scrunch up your toes. I know what that's like. You have to scrunch up your toes to wear your tennis shoes to school because we couldn't afford to get another pair of shoes. We picked cotton in the summer. Dad had us out in the cotton field starting at 6 years old. We picked cotton by hand until I graduated from high school. Every summer. And the money that we made, Dad paid us $1 a pound. And we could pick, when we got older, we could pick, when young, we picked maybe 25 pounds. We'd get a quarter a day. Getting older, picking 100, 150 pounds per day, but understand that's a penny a pound. That's just $1.50 per day, $5 per week, or 6. And that's what we used to buy our school clothes. And so when fall was coming around, we were able to buy a couple of pairs of socks, a couple of pairs of underwear, a new pair of shoes, and a couple of jeans and a couple of shirts. And I mean a couple, I mean 2. And that was it. And that's what we would have to wear. And we would supplement the rest of it either by hand-me-downs or what we wore the year before. We didn't get a whole new wardrobe. We were poor. We didn't have money. We wanted to do something for Mother's Day. And so myself and a couple of my brothers, including Daniel, we got into the canal. Because what's at the bottom of a canal? What's in the bottom of a canal? Mud. So we got it down there, we got buckets, and we scooped out mud, and we scooped out buckets of mud. Because mud turns into clay. And China is made out of clay. So we got canal mud, and we made my mom little canal mud plates and bowls and little cups. We were so proud of ourselves because we sat there with the mud and we made little plates. We let it dry out a little bit, get the water out of it, and then we took the clay that was left over and we made little plates and little bowls and little cups. Now, Mom didn't know anything about this. She didn't. If she had known that, we'd have all been in trouble. We'd have all been dead. She didn't know we got into the canal. She didn't know she thought we were just out there playing. She found out all of this when we started, because we knew a little about making cups and plates and things like that the clay has to be cooked. So we lit the gas stove and we stuck the clay inside. We stuck the plates and the bowls and the little china cups, and we stuck them inside. Clay, when it's cooking, well, canal clay, when it's cooking, smells like canal. The whole house stunk. And Mom came in, Dad came in. What is that smell? And so we had to fess up, and we pulled out Mom's Mother's Day present. And she said, "Oh, how sweet, how beautiful, how nice, how wonderful." She didn't get mad at us. She didn't yell at us. There was a little grocery store. And Mom and Dad had credit there. And so they told us that if we ever had an emergency where we needed something, that we could go there and put it on their account. We could charge it and put it on their account. They would make a little ticket and you would sign the ticket. We were not allowed to just buy candy and stuff like that. It was not for that. It was for emergency purposes. So I found out one day that day was Mom's birthday. And I had not gotten her a card, and I had not gotten her a gift. And I wanted her appreciation. I wanted her love. I wanted her to verbally thank me and share and show her appreciation to me. And so the way to do that was to get her something for her birthday. So I went into this little grocery store, and I was walking up and down the aisles. It was at lunchtime and didn't have much time. And I'm there walking up and down the aisles. What can I get Mom for her birthday? Finally, I came to, they had a little section of the store, literally about as big as this table, where they sold all kinds of little knickknacks and little tools and things like that you could use. And I saw this little brush that went on the arm of a record player. And Mom and Dad had this stereo. Back then, record players, replaced by tapes and CDs or whatever. It was a little funny black disc that went round and round. You put a needle on it. The needle was attached to the arm. What this brush was for is you would put it on the arm of the record player, so that as the record would turn, the brush would go and it would clean off the dust inside the grooves before the needle got to it. And it cost like maybe 50 cents or something like that. I didn't have 50 cents. I didn't have any money. We were poor. So I picked up the brush. I thought, well, she's got that stereo and this will go good. She doesn't have a brush on the arm of the stereo, so this would go good. And so I took that little 50-cent brush up to the counter, and I very proudly told the lady, "Charge it." And so she put it on the account. I very proudly had it all wrapped up in the brown paper bag. I scraped the price tag off of it and had it all wrapped up in the brown paper bag. One of my friends had made a little ribbon for me and stapled it onto the bag. And I proudly rode the bus home that afternoon and got home and walked into the house, and there was Mom, as she always waiting for us on the porch. And I came in the house and I said, "Happy birthday, Mom." And I handed her that little bag. And she took it and she said, "Oh, thank you, son, thank you." And she opened up that brown bag and she pulled it out. My dad was standing there looking over her shoulder. She pulled it out and there was that little dinky brush. I was so proud. My dad started laughing. My mom giggled. She says, "What's this for?" I said, "Oh, you put it on the record player and it brushes off the record before the needle comes to it." Dad was back standing behind her laughing. And she said, "Well, son, you don't have any money. How'd you pay for it?" I said, "I charged it." Dad started laughing even harder. Usually he would have gotten upset, but he started laughing at the comical scene of him having to pay for Mom's birthday present from me. They paid for their own birthday presents. What am I saying? Our affinity with God is all about relationship. And the reason why we are able to relate to God is because He is willing to come down to a certain level where we can see some things about Him that we can understand with these finite brains. You know, the Malachim, the angels, even as wise as all of them are, do not have full understanding and knowledge of the infinite one. They cannot fully relate to Him. And in fact, the truth is this. We think so highly of the Malachim, and we should, of their power, their abilities. Do you know that the Malachim cannot relate to God as well as you and I can? Because about no other part of creation, about no other creation, does He say, "Let us make this in our image and in our likeness." It is only about the human race that God says this. Is that not awesome? You see, it's not the Malachim that are the pinnacle of God's creation. It's you. You are the pinnacle of God's creation. Everything was created for you. The Malachim were created for your benefit. They're created, number one, to bring honor and glory to God, but they're created to help you and me, to help humanity in our quest on this earth. They're not the apex. They are not the pinnacle of creation. Humanity is the pinnacle of creation. And in fact, there are those sages who say that this, in fact, is why a certain portion of the Malachim fell. This is what happened to Hasatan, whom we understand to have been Lucifer in the beginning, to have been the highest of the archangels, the highest. He was the enlightened one. He was the smartest, the wisest. And he thought that he was going to be the pinnacle of God's creation, that everything was going to be for him. But then Hashem creates man. And concerning mankind, he says, let us create Ha'adam, the human, in our image and in our likeness. And so God created him in his image and in his likeness. And the Chazal tell us that at that point, the Malachim, a group of Malachim who are called the Watchers, they became jealous. The book of Enoch, of whom is quoted in the book of Jude, the book of Enoch, tells us that these watching angels, what we would call our guardian angels, these watcher angels, that a group of them became jealous of mankind because of man's relationship with God. And it was there that the fall took place. It was there that 1/3 of the Malachim, the stars of the heaven, fell out of their places. Because we are the pinnacle of creation. And they got jealous. Now, there's questions how this happened. Did they have free will at that time? Because you see, today angels do not have free will. Perhaps they had free will. Perhaps there was a group of them, this group that had free will. But we do know that they rebelled against God because the sages tell us, because we know that they rebelled against God, and the sages tell us it was because they became jealous of man's position with God, of man's relationship with God. Was higher than their relationship, was better than their relationship. Remember what I've told you, that the Bechamu, the animals of this earth, cannot relate to the spiritual. The spiritual beings that God created, they cannot relate to the physical. But man relates to both. Man is the connector. So that the earth, the physical things that are created, relate to our physical side, and the angels relate to our spiritual side. But mankind can relate to both. Mankind can relate to both. And so the scriptures tell us that the Malachim wonder at us, that they wonder at salvation, that they study this thing called Yeshua. They study this thing called salvation because it's something that they do not understand. So that the scriptures say, listen, the scriptures say that so great is our salvation that we should understand how great our salvation is, that we should not take advantage of it, but we should be forever, ever grateful and thankful and appreciative of our salvation, because this thing of salvation is given to humanity, to Chadam, to the humankind alone, to humanity alone. Not even the angels can be saved. God will not save those angels who have fallen. He does not, and he will not. It is only you and me who can be saved. Therefore, the Malachim do not understand this concept of salvation. And they study it and they look into it. The same way that you and I study the things of God that we do not understand. And they wonder at us. And one of the things that they wonder at us is, and the rabbis speak to this, that when God was getting ready, one of the things that they say is when it says, "Let us make man in our image," this plurality. Why this plurality? One of the things that the rabbis come up with is that he's speaking to the Malachim, They're in heaven with him. He's speaking to the angels in heaven. And he gives them the opportunity to put in their 2 cents worth. Don't you like it when your parents gave you the opportunity to put your 2 cents worth in? Of course, they go ahead and do what they're going to do anyway, but they allow you to say what you want to say. Basically, they're just trying to find out what you're really thinking about everything and how much you really love them, how much you really care. Anything you say, Dad, anything you say, Mom. We're so happy that you're taking us to the beach and not taking us to Disney World. So God gave the angels, according to the rabbis, God gave the angels the ability to put in their 2 cents worth. You don't want to know what their 2 cents worth was. Basically, their question was, why? Why would you do that? Why would you make them? Why would they be the pinnacle? Why would they be the top? Look at them. They're weak. They're stuck there on the earth. If I could talk to the animal. No. Look at them. Why would you make them? Why would you do this? Why not us? Why not just leave it with us? And God creates mankind anyway. And so a bunch of the angels got mad. And started a civil war. And that's what we're facing right now. That's where evil comes from. It was their pride, their arrogance, and their jealousies. Sound familiar? That's the root of all evil. Pride, arrogance, and jealousy. That's the root of all evil. Everything can be based on those things. This is how great our salvation is. Do you know that God created mankind the way he did purposefully? It wasn't an accident. That he created mankind with a caveat. Of the ability to choose. That God gives to mankind the ability to choose. This caveat. This glitch in the software. Not really a glitch, but it's difficult to describe. As it were, a fault. It's not a mistake. He purposefully, his will is to create man with the ability to fail. He did not create us to fail, but he created us with the ability to fail so that we would have the freedom to choose, because only in freedom of choice is real love, true love found. You see, the Malachim of heaven glorify God, and they find great pleasure in doing so because this is the way they were created. You and I glorify God because we choose to, because we can also choose not to. The Malachim that are around the throne of heaven singing forever, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who is and was and is to come. The whole earth is filled with his glory. The Malachim that are around the throne day and night calling this out to one another, do that because they're created to do that. But you and I have the choice to do that. They do not. That's why we're the zenith, the apex of creation. Because you have freedom to choose. You see, it was not an accident that God didn't accidentally put the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil there in the garden. He put them there on purpose so that man would be offered the choice. He allowed the serpent to come and test them and tempt them. You know, it's like when mom bakes a couple of pans full of brownies, right? Puts them in the cookie jar. You're there in the kitchen. I'm telling you this from true life experience. You're there in the kitchen watching mom make the brownies. And it smells so good. And your stomach's just like, you know, there's a hand in there that just wants to reach out and grab one. Oh, they smell so good. And then mom sits them up there on the counter and she's letting them cool off. And she says, now don't touch. And oh, so bad you want to touch. And then she cuts them into those little squares. And as she's cutting them into the little squares, there's the cookie dish there, the cookie jar, and who took the cookie from the cookie jar? And she's putting them in the cookie jar. And she puts the lid on it and she puts it on top of the refrigerator. And she says, now don't touch those. That's for your lunch tomorrow. That's the test. Because this is what Paul is talking about, that the Torah told us what we were not. And then what? Now I want to do it. That's like you not even know. You come home from school and you don't even know that mom's made brownies. They're in the cookie jar, up already on top of the refrigerator, and you don't even know that she's made brownies. But she tells you, by the way, I made brownies. And they're in the cookie jar, up on top of the refrigerator. Now, don't touch them. They're for your lunch tomorrow. And boom, automatically what? You want to touch it. This is human nature. This is what God was testing Adam and Chava with. The tree. He makes the tree. He plants it in the garden. And then he tells them, oh, by the way, there's a tree. One tree. Of all the other trees you can eat. But there's one tree. Do not eat from that tree. So every day they're passing by that tree. And they're looking at it. Looking at it. They pass by the other way and they're looking at it. And every day they're passing by and they're looking at it. The next day they're passing by 3 or 4 times and they're looking at it. Chava, she's getting a little closer, and she's looking up, and that fruit looks pretty good. It looks pretty, kind of smells nice, and can't be that bad. And along comes a little guy, just to kind of push the button a little bit there. God gave to us freedom to choose. Why? Because he has freedom of choice. And he said, I will make man in my image. None of the rest of creation has the opportunity, the privilege that you and I have to serve God and to worship him in this way. I started off with the term Elohim, and I was explaining to you why Elohim. It means judge, judges, to judge. Elo, to judge, a judge, the judge. Because he looks, like an artist who paints a beautiful picture, and then when it's all done, the artist steps back and looks at it and says, good job. I have a friend who's a famous artist down here. In fact, if you go to Bass Pro Shop, a lot of his paintings are hanging there on the wall of the Bass Pro Shop. Very good friend of mine. We actually worked together for several years in construction. And he left the construction business to become an artist. He would draw things. And I would go and look at his artwork at his house sometimes from time to time. He would sell paintings on the side at that time. He would sell little paintings on the side. And I would go, and he would tell me, he'd say, look at that painting. Look at how realistic that is. I'm talking about himself. Look at that painting. Look at how real. And he would tell me, I'm so good. And we'd step back and look at it, and yeah, that's pretty good. It's pretty realistic. Pretty lifelike. That's what it means to judge. When I worked in construction, we'd build a house. They're building a brand new house, and what do? After work is done, we'd step back and we'd be standing out there on the street looking at what we had put up, what we had accomplished that day. And when that house is finally finished and completed and everything's done and we're packing everything up, and we'd all stand out there on the street one last time and look at what we had built, what these hands had built, what this mind had conceived. We're looking at it with critical eye to this day. To this day, when I walk into a building, I begin judging how the building is put together, because that's what I did for a living for so many years. That I start seeing, the first thing I do is spot all the mistakes and the problems and the things that are not right about it. What I would change there, because I was a construction worker, I was a contractor, I was a builder for many years. That was my work. That's what it means, Elohim, to judge. And that's why it says over and over that God saw. He's judging. Behold, it was good. Here this time, he doesn't say it's good. He says it's very good. This is the judgment side of God. But on the other side is the merciful side. That's the Father side of God. On the other is the non-critical side. The forgiving side, the merciful side, the side that even when it's a scribbled paper, but you understand that child is doing that the best they understand and the best that they know how. And so with grace, you accept it. With gratitude, you accept the love of that child. Is what he's doing with us. I'm telling you all of this to say this. What a wonderful, what a great and awesome God we serve. What a loving, kind, compassionate being he is. For you and for me. That he gives to us not only the life of this time, but he has created us as eternal beings so that we may be able to live in Olam Haba, the world to come. This is what it means to create man in his image and in his likeness. That he has given to you and to me the ability to live in the world to come, not just life. Even as Rav Shaul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, that if God had created us for this life only, how sad our life is. How sad is that? Look at all the misery and all of the heartache and the heartbreak that people face. Look at the sadness that people face in their lifetimes here. I would tell, when I worked at the school, and I would tell the students, because they were in a hurry to grow up. They wanted to be adults already. And I would tell them, Mikey, don't be in a hurry to grow up. Samuel, don't be in a hurry to grow up. Take your time at it. There's plenty of time. You only have this time from the time you're 13 years old to the time you're 20 years old to be young. And then you go off to college. And you go off to college and life starts slapping you in the face. And it's just like every week it's like, ksh, and then next week, ksh, and next week, ksh, next week. Ksh. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Huh? And then the older you get, it's like every day. Ksh, ksh, ksh. Sometimes every few minutes. Kind of like a Three Stooges episode. My wife was walking around yesterday. She didn't have a happy look on her face. And I asked her, what's wrong? And she said, my back hurts. I was kind of walking, and so it bothered me. I'm going to be honest with you. It bothered me not so much that her back hurt, but that she was looking not happy. Because I want everybody to be happy. Only I can get mad. You all have to be happy. And so I kind of was, upset because she wasn't acting happy. We came and had service last night. I got up from the chair and I couldn't hardly move. And I got up and I was like, and it had pinched me. Not the chair, my nerve. I had my myself. And I couldn't hardly move. And all last night I moaned and I groaned because it hurt. The older you get, the more things hurt. The more things fall apart. So don't be in a hurry to grow up. You've got plenty of time to get old. Be young while you can and appreciate your youth. I tell my kids, don't be so hard on your kids. Grandparents learn a thing or two. You see, we use our children as experiments, and then we know how to deal with the grandkids. Grandparents are always nicer to the grandkids than they were to the children. That's why the grandkids, they always get money and candy and whatever they want to ask for, because grandma and grandpa are there to make their lives happy. By the way, it's very opposite when you come in my family. Grandpa, he's the one that hands out the candy and the cookies and all of that. Grandma's the one saying, no, not till supper, not till this. And I say, go ahead, little candy won't hurt your supper anyway. That you appreciate God and what he's done for you, because not only is Elohim, but he's Yud-Keh-Vav-Keh. Not only does he show his judging character, but he also shows his nurturing and loving character. And he's both. Let us make man. So the original Adam Rishon, he's both. He has the character of the father. He has the character of the mother. But before the day's over, God will withdraw the character of the mother and mostly leave him with the character of the father and make her the character of the mother. But the two are able to relate to one another. You see, that was the problem. Adam basically didn't have anyone to relate with because his relationship with God is limited. His relationship to the angels is limited. His relationship to the animals is limited. Because of those is he exactly like that. But Chava will be taken from out of within him. Flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones is what he says. You were taken out of me, and so I will call you woman. Isha. Ish, man. Isha, woman. Why? Isha was taken from Ish. So now he has someone with whom he can relate. We'll get into more of that next week. We're going to stop here. We're going to talk next week about what it is to be in the express likeness of God. Literally, a heads up to you. You are the shadow of God. What do I mean, the shadow? Well, look on the wall here. And can you turn the projector on a minute? Well, can you turn the projector on a minute? Don't hurry. We got all the time. So a shadow. If it ever comes on. A shadow. A failure. My sermon's a failure. The shadow. Okay, can you see the shadow behind the ark over here? Can you see that? Notice that the shadow takes the shape of what? Of the ark. The shadow? Oh, there you go. See? Look. See my shadow? How many fingers do I have? How many fingers does my shadow have? Oh, wow. Now how many? Now how many? Huh? Now how many? You see, it's my express image. It's my likeness. It's just like, look, my shadow has a beard. You need a shave. He needs a haircut. He's wearing glasses. He's got a keep on his head. He's wearing a talit. Look. And see, notice everything that my shadow, everything that I do, my shadow does too. The word image, tselem, comes from the Hebrew word tsalem. Everyone say tsalem. Shadow. Saying what? What God does, how God is, you're supposed to be. Or as Yeshua lived, we're supposed to live. In his exact likeness, in his express image, in his shadow. As the rabbi does, turn it off please, thank you. As the rabbi does, that's what you and I do. So how the rabbi dressed, that's the way the Talmid would dress. That's the way the student would dress. So how the rabbi got up in the morning, when the rabbi got up, the student got up. When the rabbi ate, the student ate. When the rabbi went to bed, the student went to bed. And all the things that the rabbi did, the student would learn. They would live with the rabbi. That's why you notice that the 12 disciples are with Yeshua constantly, day and night, for those 3 years. They never leave his side. Why? They're learning to be just like him. So that when other people see you, they don't see you, they see your rabbi in you. Because you're dressed, that's why Jewish people dress certain ways. That's why some of them, some Jewish people, the Orthodox, they dress all in black and they wear the hat. Why? Because that's who their rabbi is. Some of them wear the big fur hats. Why? The rabbi wears. Some of them, they wear the long side locks, the peyot. Why? That's what their rabbi wore. They're following their rabbi. Most of those rabbis have been dead for over 200 or 300 years, and yet they're still dressing like that. There are certain sects that of Judaism where they wear the short black pants and the high white socks from 200 years ago. They're still wearing the clothing here in the United States. Why? Because that's the way their rabbi dressed 200 years ago, and they still dress that way today. Saying what? To be exactly like, I want to be as close to my rabbi in everything I do, in the way I think, in the way I feel, in what I say, and what I do, in how I dress, in everything I do. I want to be like my rabbi. Who's my rabbi? Yeshua Mashiach. Therefore, I'm in his shadow, in his likeness, in his image. How he moves, I move. Where he goes, I go. What he says, I say. What he does, I do. He's my rabbi. And that's what it means to be B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. We love you. We thank you for your love for us, for your goodness and mercy to us. We thank you, Father, so much for how you have created us. Father, too many times we are unappreciative, ungrateful for all that you have done for us and all you have given to us. We take advantage of your goodness and your mercy and your grace, Father, and we don't properly say thank you. Like the 10 lepers whom Yeshua healed, only one came back to say thank you. Father, so often, so many times we go through our life not thanking you for the small things as well as the big things that you do for us. Father, we want to stop right now, right here on this Shabbat, and say thank you. And say with gratitude how much we appreciate all that you have done for us. our lives, our families, our homes, our synagogue, the Torah, all our salvation that you have done for us. And so we praise your name. Help us throughout this week to seek your face daily and to remember these things, Father, and to remember to have a good attitude and to be grateful. We come in the merit of Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen. Let's all stand for the blessing, please. If you would lift up your hands. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, ya'er panav elecha v'yikunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May Adonai bless you and keep you. May Adonai be gracious to you and shine his face upon you. May Adonai lift up his countenance upon you, fill you with his peace. From Sarka Shalom Yeshua Mashiach v'inlu. Amen. Shalom. Kiddush.